Good to ma'am. Before Cliven Bundy revealed himself to be the Donald Sterling of Utah, his case raised some serious questions about the militarization of federal agencies. Who knew the BLM had their own paramilitary unit? And guess what? They're not alone. The IRS, Department of Fish and Wildlife, even the Department of Education have their own troops to administer the smackdown should things get tense. Our next guest is looking to curtail some of these units. He wants to cut funding and get some accountability. He should know. He's from Utah, and they house several federal agencies who already have more than enough control over your life. Well, welcome to the show, Representative Chris Stewart.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you.
I really appreciate it, and I want to know, from your point of view, tell me about some of the other agencies that are militarized in some sense or another, that have these paramilitary units. How many?
Yeah.
What are the surprising ones, and what is the ultimate cost?
Well, we don't know what the ultimate cost is. We're actually investigating that. But, the number may be as high as 73 of them. And you listed some of them, but, I mean, heavens, the Department of Education, Food and Drug Administration, as you mentioned, BLM, IRS, EPA. It appears that nearly every major government agency, and many of the minor agencies as well, have these essentially, they don't call them that in many cases, but they're essentially paramilitary units. And I got to tell you, these are regulatory agencies. These aren't law enforcement agencies. And, they're enforcing tens of thousands of pages of regulations. And can you think of a situation that is so urgent with a regulatory matter that you got to have a SWAT team and get them there right now?
Congressman, this came about because of the Homeland Security Act of 2002. So it was in the wake of 9/11 that we decided to give inspectors general these kind of powers of full police authority. Are you looking to actually amend that or slice out that enacting legislation and just stop this where it started?
Well, if you were to ask me, I think ultimately that would be our goal. Now, we're early in the process, and where we're starting is looking at the funding levels. But I tell you, the American people understand this. They have responded to this idea. And a lot of times we think of what happened in Nevada, and I know that's caught the media's attention, but this has been going on, or examples like that, for several years that have caught my attention. I mean, there was an example in California a few years ago where the Department of Education, early in the morning, rammed down a guy's door, handcuffed him, drag his kids out to the car, and it was over what was financial aid issue, a financial aid fraud. There's examples of the Food and Drug Administration going on to a family farm in Pennsylvania with essentially a SWAT team. And his crime was he was shipping small amounts of unpasteurized milk to some mothers in Washington, D.C. who wanted to give their children some unpasteurized milk. I mean, when the American people hear these kinds of things, it creates so much more distrust between the people and between the federal government, and it's just extraordinarily unhelpful, I think.
All right, and who should be policing these situations? Who should be in charge? Should it be the military? Should it be local law enforcement?
Well, yeah, exactly, local law enforcement. Look, there's a reason why sheriffs are elected. If your local sheriff or his deputies are abusing people, if they're doing things that they shouldn't or exercising authority they don't have, you can go to your sheriff. And ultimately, if he doesn't correct it, you can vote him out of office. But try to find these federal regulatory agencies and their SWAT teams. Try to identify who's involved with them and try to talk and correct them. It's nearly impossible. It is exactly right. I think it's exactly the right approach to have federal law enforcement. We want them to protect themselves. We understand, for example, out here in the West, where I am this evening in Utah, there's BLM agents that are out there in very remote parts of the state. I think it's appropriate that they carry a sidearm if they feel that's necessary. But this is something very different. And again, the American people, they just don't appreciate it. It creates so much distrust between the American people and the federal government, and that's one of the primary problems that we have right now.
All right, well, thank you very much, Representative. We'll keep our eye on this, and, we'll see if Darrell Iss's Data Act somehow sheds some transparency on this situation, because if we don't even know what it's costing, how are we supposed to figure out what they're doing? Thanks again.
Well, we're going to find out, so thank you.